So here's the second side of the 2000 Toyota 4Runner rough country 2.5-inch lift suspension. Now we have a little bit better of an idea on what we're doing in there. So I'll get some better lighting on it here in a second. But I'll show you guys how it's done the easy way too. All right, so now that we have the tire off, you've obviously got your ball joint right here, your upper ball joint. You got the top of the shock tower, strut tower. And you got all this excitement down here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna PB blast or WD-40 up these three nuts up here. Not this middle one. If you do that, you go boom and got a coil through your fender and all that excitement. But these three little ones around it. And then we come down here and we're gonna loosen this bad boy up too. Probably won't hurt to just take the nut off at this point in time because it's got so much pressure on it. And after we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take this little sway bar link off right here. Here, let's get a better angle. This sway bar link, so that just takes a 17 millimeter. And obviously you can see mine's trashed. I probably got to replace them soon. We're going to take this tie rod off. You can see I wired it instead of the little cotter pin. We take that off, and then we'll take off these 4 bolts up under the ball joint. Down here, I don't know. Let me try to get a better angle on that as well. So there's gonna be 2 on this side, this one, 2 more on the other side. Those are little 14s. And this tie rod is a 22, I believe. We'll take those off, and then we'll slowly lower that control arm until the point where we can move it. And we're gonna get this shock or the strut out, and we'll go from there. I'll show you a little bit of progress here in a minute. So we got it out. Again, those were 14 millimeters up top, those 3. And then down below, it's a 19 nut and a 19 bolt. And like I said, we ended up pulling out sway bar link, except this one didn't need to come out unlike last time. And then this tie rod. And then the mounting bolts for the upper piece of this ball joint. So this comes free. And the whole lower control arm drops out. Then all you have to do is pull out the strut, nice and easy. There she is. And I'll go get the new one and show you guys what's next. All right, so there's the difference. The 2.5-inch lifted rough country strut and the stock Toyota strut. You can see it's bigger and beefier to begin with, and then obviously taller. So we're gonna be putting that bad boy in there. After I do a little bit of wire wheeling, we're gonna paint up this frame so it looks a little you'd say cleaner, nicer. It won't rust out, you know. We got some rust spots starting. So now when you're getting ready to put in the new strut, you're gonna have to loosen up the camber bolts back there. The bolt head itself takes a 22 or a 7/8, and you just loosen that bolt head a little bit on each side back there if you can see it. And those are also how you change your camber, adjust your camber. So as you can see, they have the little numbers on them, and I will do a different video on adjusting camber. But luckily I'm not to that point right now. So here we are now. We got these loosely on the top of the shock tower, and we've got this new bolt down here on the bottom. This new bolt's taking a 19 on the nut, 19 on the bolt head. And these new rough country nuts that came with the strut are 15s, I do believe. So we're going to tighten this all the way down, and then we're going to start jacking up this bottom so that we can get this lower ball joint piece back in place, this sway bar link back in place, and then we'll tighten those down the rest of the way. We'll go from there. So front end is lifted. A lot harder to tell in a video. And she's all tooted up. So next step is the rear. Got lucky and the old man emu came in early. So we'll put in the old man emu coils back here in the rear. And the rough country lifted shocks for the rear. So there's your coil. There's your shock for this side. Shock on the other side. You can't really see in coil on the other side. So we'll see how this bad boy goes. All right. Well, now we are working on the rear, because I got lucky today. The rear old man emu coils came in, and I've got my rear rough country shocks. So show you a new technique I learned. This time I decided to do the other side before I recorded, just so I don't slip up or anything stupid like that. So other side's already lifted. We got the 2.5 lifted rear coils and the 2.5 to 4 inch lifted rear shocks. So we'll get that going and get you shown what we're doing next. All right, so the tire's off. First, what we're gonna do is take the shock off. We got this bolt. I believe it is a, looks like a 17 to me. I think that's what the other one was. And then you got to go up under. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but up there, the shock goes up to that little spot right there, that little nipple. So there's a 14 socket up there, or 14 nut, I mean, and you can get it with a socket or a wrench. I have to get it with a deep well socket. In my case, it's way too tight for a wrench. So get up in there with like a deep well socket, start cranking on that bad boy, and you're gonna have to hold this because it's gonna start spinning on you. So you hold this in place while cranking on it with the other hand. Or what you could do, if you get it loose enough, is get your wrench on it. If you put a wrench on, and then let it jam up against the metal and just twist this, and it'll twist out. So once you get those two out, this bottom piece is a little bit of a pain. I had to bang on it a little bit from right here and pry with a screwdriver to get it out. So that's what ended up happening anyways. But then once we get done with that, we're going to come up here to the coil, which is a little bit of a different story. This is going to drop out once you get that bolt out. It's going to drop a little bit. And I'll show you a new technique I found to make getting it out easier and getting in a bigger one easy too. So believe it or not, some things can be simple just with some time. So this shock was a bit more of a pain in the butt to get. Took a lot more time than I was hoping. But now we see the good old bottle jack method. We got the stock bottle jack right here. Fortunately, I don't have the crank, so I'm using tire iron crank on it. But you just go off of like a little 2x4 on the axle. And then you go up onto the bump stop right here. And you can put pressure on the bump stop, you know, it's no big deal. It's what it's made for, unless you got a trash like old one. But did it on the other one, it didn't even leave a mark. So anyways, what we're gonna do is we're gonna jack it until it's high enough to pull this coil out. And we'll pull this coil out, and then we'll start seeing how that next one's gonna fit and how much more we're gonna need to jack it up. So anyways, we'll just start cranking on this bad boy, get her going up, and go from there next. So here's the rear Old Man Emu coils. Obviously they're 2.5 lifted, so it's gonna be a little bigger. They're also a little beefier and better strung. They're built for, like, I think it was an extra 400-pound towing capacity than stock, so it'll be good for me too, hauling trailers and all that. But as you can see, we've been jacking the little bottle jack, getting it up. So now I'm gonna have to go up another, what, 2.5 inches or so, be able to get that bad boy in there. But see up there, goes, just slides into place basically, as long as you get it right, get that bottom, the spring, put it up there. So you got that, you got your little block right here for it to go on. These things get full of dirt from what I am finding out anyways. So yeah, they get a little clog right there from rocks. But anyways, you'll put that back into the new one, unless you've got a new one, you know, which is probably a better way to go. But right now I'm somewhat low budget since I just spent however the hell much on a lift. So that's why I didn't do a 3-inch or something. Have to do all the control arms and all of that. But anyways, we'll get all this cleaned up a little bit better, work on the frame a little bit, and get the new coil in and new shock and all that. When you get that new shock, you're going to want to kind of pound it on. You make sure you get this other rubber grommet off. That's off the old shock on both of my sides. That stuck on, so you got to make sure you get that off or it won't go on the way you want it to. and then go up there. And what I did was clear a lot of the mud out of there too, because it gets full of mud up in there. You just go through that top piece. That way you can get all the mud out and your nut sits better and you don't have any issues further down the road. So, but when putting that on, I found the best technique is you get the bottom on and then you wait to cut it, because they put that strap around the top. I'll show you in a minute. But you wait to cut it, you get it on, you get the bolt on just nice and loose just so it holds it in place, and then you cut it. Make sure you get all your pieces on, your rubber piece and your washer and all that before, but while it's slowly expanding, kind of hold it down as much as you can, angle it right and get it going up into that hole, get it to go straight up into there, and then put all the stuff on top. This is the best method I found. Obviously other people might say otherwise, but I don't know. I don't see practicality in mounting it up there and then having to push it on down here. It'd be a pain in the butt. Might be easier for some people, but I don't know, in my personal preference anyways. But like I said, make sure you get that off. I totally forgot to take it off, but that'll really screw you down the road if you're trying to put that thing on and you can't quite get it on. So as you can see, it just slid off on that bar. But I also would recommend, obviously you can see that started to rust out and get dirty, so maybe go in there with a thread cleaner and clean it all out. And then I've been putting on new bolts onto everything. I went to the parts store and got new bolts for these, and then new bolts for the bottom of the front struts, and then the lift kit came with new nuts to mount up top, and then the top of the towers. So that would just be my recommendation. Obviously you don't have to do it, but I'd say it'd be good, you know. And yeah, don't let your cars rust out like mine has right here. So a little something else I forgot to mention, be very careful of all your lines back here. Don't put too much tension on them. Avoid it if you can anyways, and if you do, try not to leave it on for too long. I loosened this one up. This one looked like a pain to loosen up, but I think it's okay. This one, it's strong, so I need to get the pressure off of it now. I ended up having to pry this one on a little bit because I didn't want to put any more pressure on that side. This side's a lot hairier than the other. This is the one with the fuel tank and everything. It's tighter fit, a lot more lines, and a lot more stuff you can mess up. So anyways, just be very cautious of all of that type of stuff, you know. So now we're ready to work on that shock, and took the jack out. So what I'm gonna do is put the bottom of the shock on, and as you can see, shocks, all shocks I've ever seen anyways, I could be wrong about some, but I doubt it. Shocks normally come with this band on them, and so then it's got that little plastic piece so the band can come on it. Comes with that, and then it comes with the rest of the mounting hardware. And from what I've found on the other side, I used both of these rubber grommets, one on the bottom side and one on the top. So one down here in this hole, and then one on the other side of that hole. And I used the washer above the one on the other side of that hole, but I didn't use it on this side because it didn't seem to want to fit. And it comes with an extra nut, which I'm guessing is for if you have a bolt coming out instead of that threaded piece for the bolt to go in. So I ended up using it on top of the other bolt, or the other nut on this bad boy, just as a little extra security. So I put this bolt, or this nut, and then the other nut on top of it. So that's what I did. Obviously everyone's different and every vehicle is somewhat different, but anyways, I'm gonna get started on that. I'm gonna put that on, cut the band, put on that hardware as quick as I can, and then guide it up into that hole.